Here we are, live from Beijing, from my favorite building, Chaofu Feng Tao Di. It's one of the most amazing buildings in Beijing. It's a modern architecture marvel with art, integrated green, landscape, sculptures. Look around. This is Beijing. This is urban phenomenology. The subject of this paper is urban phenomenology in the design of urban operating systems. I wanted to introduce the theory of phenomenology because I think people designing cities are a little too stiff. We want more fun, more philosophy, more theory, more creativity. So this paper is trying to open up some of this discussion. There's 5 sections of the paper. I'm going to talk first about the philosophy. What is phenomenology? Do you know what phenomenology is? Phenomenology is a common term. Maybe most of you think of phenomena. You say, wow, that's a strange phenomena. It is something we understand. It's a science of experience. But as we know, experience is so difficult to explain. What is experience? Experience is subjective. It's very personal. So many philosophers have looked at what is phenomenology from the point of view, can you objectify the science of experience? I think people have attempted, Husserl, Hegel, many scientists, the Germans were struggling with this in the early 100 years ago, trying to define, can the objectivity of phenomena be explained through some kind of, let's say, logic, a logical system. And they looked at absolute the truth of phenomena being that reality as we see it could be explained in a logical framework. But other people, like Merleau-Ponty, a French phenomenologist, he felt that phenomenology is subjective. It's based on your perception. And that led to a whole new direction of phenomenology, studying the science of experience through perception. Perception is individual. So phenomenology has fought over this duality between objective and subjective, between what Descartes, the Cartesian duality between mind over matter. Is there an absolute truth to experience, or experience only understood through the individual level, individual perception? After the great debate, many other philosophers, especially in France in this century, 19th century, 20th century, were studying the deconstruction of knowledge, of meaning. They were looking at how to basically break down any ideas of truth. And the deconstructivist movement, you might have heard, there's famous people like Michel Foucault and The Order of Things. These are famous books written. The French school basically tried to say that it's all subjective. There's no real truth. And we're kind of trapped in this empirical logic of civilization, of culture, of politics, and they tried to break away. I think this later led to what many architects have been inspired to look at, which is the sense of place, experience. What I wanted to do is I wanted to bring you here in this environment where this is really about the transformation of space, experience, landscape, lighting, buildings, reflections of buildings, of sunlight. This is what people have tried to define as phenomenology of place. Is it objective, or is it really how we perceive, how we feel? What's the weather like? What's the conditions? It's always changing, it's transformative. So underlining my paper about cities and the operating systems of cities, I wanted to introduce this concept of phenomenology to have us open the mind to think that there's many different ways to understand cities, and that the technological side needs to incorporate those dynamic frames of reference, which is the title of my paper. So that's the first section of this paper. The second chapter of the paper, second section of the paper, is on dynamic frames of reference. It's looking at the city from macro to micro, from human to system-wide, from personal to the objective operating system. We need to look at the city from multiple points of view, not just from the technological framework. As I mentioned, the city needs to be considered from different points of view, from multiple frames of reference, from dynamic frames of reference. That includes the macro and the micro. That includes the system view, the operating system view, which is from the city infrastructure point of view, as well as from the individual citizen, from the individual participant's point of view. Today, more than ever, cities can incorporate the citizen's point of view. Crowdsourcing, social media is allowing us now to collect data from a wide range of areas. All of this allows us to compile the urban operating system, both as a data collection and a data visualization that allows us to understand the real-time operating nature of the city. Urban operating systems incorporate the social, cultural, the environmental, and the technological dimensions of cities. Cities are a form of collective intelligence. They require all of these different dimensions to come together to form how cities live, work, breathe, operate. That's the purpose of my paper, to think about this as much more of a dynamic space than purely a technological operating system. The last section of the paper, Cities as Interdisciplinary Platforms, Design as Catalyst, talks about how the role of design is so critical in the open source, open-ended approach that design brings to the development of cities. Cities are scientific, they're artistic, they're living, so they need a much more, I think, comprehensive approach that design can bring to the table. We like to look at systems thinking. Systems thinking is a much more holistic approach to integrated and interdisciplinary solutions. The development of cities requires this kind of systems approach because we're talking about everything from the human factor to the environmental to the technological. These all have their own disciplines, their own scientific basis, their own even professional practices. So how do we bring these together in a holistic approach? The city is the interdisciplinary platform, and it allows design to play a key role. Design itself can adapt to anything. It's not as rigid as other disciplines. Design, you can look back to the basis of art and design, has always been able to conform and adapt to the environment, to specifically bring something fresh to the table. So this paper, the last section, talks about this. We hope that we as designers can play a key role in the development of cities. I wish I could be there today to answer questions and continue the dialogue about the paper, but I hope you read the paper. At least it's not very long, and I look forward to your comments by email or follow-up. I'd just like to take this time to acknowledge a few people, Professor Fu, for being a great host for me here in Beijing at Tsinghua University and Academy of Art and Design, Parsons School of Design, where I've been teaching for over 15 years, and my father, who's been a great inspiration and continues to give me lots of feedback as my role model. I'd like to acknowledge quickly the three people helping me come over here, you guys, to help me produce this short documentary. Ken, Tom, Mayumi, all been great today to put this together. This is a bit of an experiment. We hope you like our presentation and have a great time at the conference. Take care.